Hello and welcome everyone. We are talking about how to keep your construction projects under budget. So that's what we're talking about today, how to keep all of your construction projects when it comes to the BRRRR strategy under budget. My name is Palak. I'm here with Open Spaces Women. Today, we're going to cover a few questions. I'm going to go over them first. How does the project scope come into play when it comes to the BRRRR rehabs, right? That's the first thing we're going to cover, like why are project scopes so important, how to set yourself up for success when it comes to construction budgeting, how to set yourself up for success from the beginning, what to do during the due diligence phase, um, and how to avoid scope creep and stay under budget. So this is one of the questions that comes up all the time, how to avoid scope creep when it comes to construction. What to do when you run into surprises when it comes to construction. And we always joke and say that, oh, you really need to know what to do during um, construction surprises. And then, we always joke and say that, and there's always a surprise. I mean, every construction project, once you start opening things up, you always find something that you didn't expect. So you really need to set yourself up for success from the beginning and know how to manage construction projects really, really well. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Any questions you have, feel free to drop them in the chat as we move forward. And if you're watching a replay, drop hashtag replay in comments so I know you are here. All right, so let's start. So the first question is, how does the project scope come into play when we do a BRRRR rehab? By the way, if you're here live, can you just tell me who you are and where you're from so I know you are here? Just drop in comments who you are and where you're from. And again, if you're watching a replay, drop hashtag replay in comments so I know you are here. All right, so the first question is, how does a project scope come into play when we do a BRRRR rehab? So this is something that I think is really interesting when it comes to this strategy. There are many different strategies when it comes to real estate investing, right? And we specialize in the supercharged BRRRR strategy. The BRRRR is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It's age old. People have been doing it for decades. The acronym is new, but the strategy is old, and that's what we specialize in. And there are many different types of strategies when it comes to real estate investing, but this specific strategy has the element of rehab in it. And why does renovation come into play? Because this strategy focuses on forced appreciation. So what we do is you buy a distressed property and then you renovate it and you force it to appreciate fast. Real estate appreciates slowly over time. But this renovation component, if you do it right and if you know how to do your numbers right, it forces your property to appreciate instantly. And by instantly, I mean within a few months of purchasing it, because you're renovating it, right? A few months is kind of like an instant when it comes to real estate, because this is a very long-term strategy. So that rehab is a really big element of this specific strategy. And the project scope becomes really important because when you go to buy a property, you really need to understand how much renovation you're going to do and how it's going to appreciate after. And that's how you do your deal analysis, to understand whether you can or cannot pull all of your cash out at the end and move it to the next property, right? That is the whole idea behind going after this strategy. So when it comes to doing deal analysis and figuring out whether or not you will purchase a specific property, is the project scope, right? Like, you really need to understand how much you're going to renovate, how much you're going to spend on it, and what that appraisal is going to be after you're done renovating it. Those things come into play here. So the project scope becomes really important. And we talk about this with members in our program often, is that you really need to understand the difference between renovating a property for a flip and renovating a property for BRRRR, right? And there is a big difference, because when you're flipping a property, you're really focused on the potential homeowner and what they want to see in the renovation. When you're renovating a property for a BRRRR, you are focusing on uh, what the tenant wants to see, to be comfortable, and to make that location, that property, attractive to a potential tenant. But not only that, you're also looking at what the appraiser wants to see, because your cash out refi depends on it, right? So that becomes really important. So it's a different type of renovation that you're after. um, so as we move on to the next question, I kind of want to bring up something here. You, as we move through the project, to the different components of why, um, how to stay under budget, right? Like, what's the secret to stay under budget? I want you to look at it from the perspective of rentals and from the perspective of the BRRRR strategy. So that, keep that in mind as we move forward. I'm just gonna say hi to a couple of people that I see here. I see there's somebody from Florida here, over on Instagram. Um, Arun from Drexel Hill, Mandeepa from Dallas, Texas. Yay, good to see you guys. And I see over on Facebook, I see Linda is here from New York. Linda is actually in our program. Welcome, Linda. Uh, Basilio is here. Penny from New Jersey. Hello, everyone. Good to have you all here. Yeah. So the next question is how to set yourself up for success when it comes to construction budgeting. And this is something that I discuss often. That when it comes to setting yourself up for success, when it comes to having a successful renovation that is under budget and that is done on time, it's all in the planning, how you plan upfront, right? So how do you do all the upfront planning so that your project goes really well? um, Number one, you really need to work with a contractor that knows what they're doing. And I see a lot of investors, they will go and find a contractor on Craigslist, and on paper they're way cheaper than the rest of the contractors out there, right? But in the long run, they end up actually costing you more money. So you want to make sure you're working with a contractor that is licensed, that is insured, that is competent, that knows what they're doing, and they're reliable. Those are the key elements you want to take a look at when you're hiring a contractor, right? So that's number one. Second one is, we always ask you to build a buffer in your construction budget. And that is the key to staying under budget. And I managed projects as an engineer for many years, and I know that there's one rule for any project: is you're always going to go over budget, and you're always going to go, you're never going to finish on schedule, right? So how do you, as a project manager, and when you're managing your own construction, how do you as a project manager combat these two issues? The way you do it is you always build a buffer, and then your projects will, um, when you have those buffers built in, your project will end up at the end of the day be under budget and under schedule, right? Does that make sense? So we would have one timeline, and one budget for the team that's working on the project. And then when you're reporting up as a project manager, you always have buffers built in when you report up. And this is not in all kind of project management, but I work specifically, um, as an engineer, where we used to put factories in different locations. Like, we build factories from scratch, and so there are a lot of different variables that come into play, especially when you work globally. You have to deal with different governments, you have to deal with different teams, and different people, different countries have different cultural elements that come into play, different work ethics and things like that. So you always have to build those buffers, and so that's where I learned that, and I implement that also within real estate investing. You want to make sure that your budget with the contractor has a buffer built into it so that even when you go a little bit over, you still have that room to play around when it comes to finishing the project under budget, right? Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense. Just say, give me a thumbs up or a yes in comments so I know that made sense. Uh, so two things to set yourself up for success: work with a really good team, work with a great contractor, and to always have a buffer built. And what you want to do is always have a um, tight reins on the project budget from the very beginning. So if you've never managed projects before, and if you've never worked with people like in a factory or a job site, you have to understand that these people are not sitting at their desks crunching numbers all the time. They're at the job site. They're working. They're doing physical work, right? They're creatives, and so when it comes to the budget and keeping an eye on it from the very beginning, that's your job. You have to be in charge of the money, and you have to be, have a really good idea of how the project is progressing when it comes to the numbers and how much work is done, right? So that's your job. um, what to do during the due diligence phase for BRRRR? So this is something, I think it's super interesting. Like, you get a budget in the beginning, right? You get a project scope, you get a budget. Now you have that property under contract. During the due diligence phase, I always advise people to tighten up this budget. You always want to make sure that you use that due diligence period to tighten up that budget, to make sure that any vendors you need to get into the property, you get them in the property and have them take a look. And it doesn't matter whether you are local or you're an out of state investor. About 30 people, 30%, 30 to 40% of the people in our program are out of state investors. Whether you're in state or out of state, you need to make sure that during the due diligence period, you get somebody into your property and have them take a look at it and have them confirm the numbers that you used to put in that offer. Does that make sense? Make sure that you do that during the due diligence period. That's the time when you don't that's not the time to be laid back about the project, right? Like, oh, I have the property under contract, I'm good. That is the time when you get to work. That's the time when you tighten up all the numbers during the due diligence period. The next question is how to avoid scope creep and stay under budget. So my very first BRRRR project that I did, we started the project with something in mind, and then as we went through the project, we started seeing a lot of things we wanted to do that we hadn't thought of before. And that's not a good idea. You should never do that when it comes to your project. Don't get into this thing where this is my baby and I want it to look pretty and I wanted to, so we this is what we had started doing. We started opening up the walls, which we really did not need to do to make it like a top-notch rental. That's a flip quality renovation for that specific neighborhood. You have to see what your competition is doing. That was not necessary. So we put in a lot of the bells and whistles that were not necessary to make it a good rental. So since then, I mean, we're at 100 doors now, so I've had a lot of practice and a lot of learnings throughout the way. But that was the first time, and I see a lot of new investors do that too. You have to remember, you're not the one living in it. You have to make sure that it's comfortable for the tenant to live in, and you have to make sure that everything you put into it is sturdy, because you don't want to get calls again and again about fixing the same thing over and over again, right? So everything you put in, make sure it can take wear and tear. So that's what you want to look at, as opposed to like opening up the walls and putting that dishwasher and the garbage disposal and all of the bells and whistles that you think you might like. um, the last question I want to address, and then I'm going to open it up for anybody who has any questions. So while I'm talking about this, if you have any other questions, drop them in the chat and I'll try to get to as many as I can. The last one is what to do when you run into surprises for your construction project. So what do you do when you run into a surprise when it comes to your construction project? So something that I realize not a lot of investors know, something that I had to learn over time. And something that we kind of take for granted is you have at your disposal, especially if you're following our way of investing in real estate. So we invest in real estate. We don't invest with any partners. We don't invest in any JVs or anything. Everything that all of our close to 100 doors are owned by myself and my husband. Um, but we do it in a very corporate way. So that's what I always tell people, like it's a very corporate way of investing in real estate. So if you're following the way we do real estate investing, you will have at your disposal a top-notch expert when it comes to construction. That is your GC, right? So whenever you run into a surprise during construction, right, they're going to go in, they're going to start opening up everything so that they can renovate it, and they will find something, right? You never know what's behind the walls unless you start demoing. They'll find something, and then when they come to you with a surprise and the amount it's going to take to fix whatever issue they have found, don't just take it and assume that that's all you have when it comes to options. Those are not your only options. What you need to do is take that, and then the next step is to work with your contractor to find creative solutions to that problem. So, if I were a contractor, I see something, I'm going to give you the best possible renovation option for that issue that I'm seeing. Instead, you go back and say that, listen, okay, I understand this is going to cost $7,000. However, I still have to stay under budget. So, how can we work together to find creative solutions to this problem? Or can we change something in the rest of the scope so that we can still stay within the budget and finish the renovation that we're after? So, that is the time when you sit down with a contractor and find creative solutions. So, whenever you hit a point where there's a surprise and there's something new and unexpected that comes up when it comes to your construction, don't just take whatever first solution your contractor offers to you. That is the time you work with them to still stay within the budget, or maybe a little bit here and there, but not significantly go over, and find creative solutions to go around the issue that you're seeing. So that's all I had. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I'm here for a few more minutes. And while you're doing that, I'm going to tell you, whenever you're ready, we have an amazing high success rate program, the portfolio program. Um, we have worked with so many amazing people. I feel very fortunate and privileged to have the trust of the amazing, intelligent, ambitious, and kind human beings that we bring into the program. It's a super generous community. So whenever you're ready, all you have to do is go to Open Spaces Women / book a call and see if you're a good fit. We're very selective about who we bring in because we only work with a handful of people at a time, and this is a labor of love, our coaching program. So we kind of are very picky about who we bring in. We bring in generous people who really are ambitious, because I care about the success rate, and I want to make sure that everybody we bring in have the ambition to grow and build a massive portfolio and make work optional and build wealth. So we're picky, but it's a pretty amazing community. So whenever you're ready, you can join us. All right. So there's a question. When do you choose not to redo the roof? Oh, this is a really good question, Linda. Um, Pretty much every project that I have done, we have put a new roof 99% of the time. There's one roof that we didn't redo. And that's because when we got the roof inspected, we were told that the roof was put in just 2 years prior to us purchasing the property. And so there was no need to redo the roof. So that is the only time when if an inspector or a roofer goes in and evaluates the roof and they tell you that this roof is perfectly fine. There's literally no need for a new roof. That is the only time I will not put a new roof. Almost every project we start with the roof. That is how you're protecting your asset. It all trickles down, right? Like if your roof has issues, all your renovation is going to get damaged in case of a problem. So roof is where we start usually. So 99% of the time we do redo the roof. That's a good question though. All right, you guys. I am going to take off. I will see you next Tuesday. So I'm doing these lives most Tuesdays at noon Eastern. So mark your calendars, put a recurring meeting in your calendar so your time is blocked almost every Tuesday at noon. And if you're not on our email list, go to openspaceswomen.com and get on the email list so you can get a reminder. Or if you're following us on any social media channel, wherever you're watching this, we'll probably post about it as well. All right. So I'll see you guys next Tuesday at noon Eastern. And Linda, I will see you on our program call this week. All right, you guys. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.